Okay, so let's get into the video. We actually had a totally different video that was planned for this Saturday, and it was supposed to be in regards to Heidi's CBR 1000RR. So Heidi has a 2021 or 22, I don't actually remember which year, CBR 1000RR, and she had a little bit of an incident on it, which required us to order a bunch of the tail section plastics and things of that nature, and it turns out that is a nightmare to do. That is a whole separate other video. We recorded the video, but in testing it out, not testing it out, but in recording that video using a new camera that we have, what wound up happening was, for whatever reason, I don't know what the reason was, there was no audio. Even though our audio meter was showing that there was, in fact, audio that was coming through, there just wasn't. So with that in mind, what we wound up having to do is pivoting. And so this is the pivot. Like, what else is ready and on the table and prepared to be talked about? So I figure what we'll actually get into then would be um, some information regarding, I guess, firearms. Like Derek just recently did a video where he was talking about sighting in his 1911. I know that he had some challenges with that. I think we should actually maybe do a podcast episode where we talk about that. But yeah, he had some challenges that were going on there, and that isn't the only firearm news, I guess, that's going on. Um, right now in the moment of things. And so let's go ahead and talk about what else there might be that's going on. And that is Sig Sauer. So what about Sig Sauer? Sig Sauer makes some interesting things. Sig Sauer has had some great stuff. Sig Sauer has been problematic a little bit, if that's the right word. I don't want to say problematic. Yeah, problematic's maybe not the right word. They've had some challenges. They've had some decisions, some manufacturing decisions that were questionable regarding first party products that they carry. And we'll talk about that a little bit in some of the platform information that we're going to go over here in just a moment. But with that in mind, I kind of wanted to talk about the Sig Sauer information as it applies to me in the most recent circumstances. And that actually has to do with both Heidi and I. So I do have something personally owned from Sig Sauer that I guess we can talk about, and I think that's going to be what the meat of this is. Let's call it a excuse me. Let's call it a review, if you will, like a pivot from the motorcycle content that was supposed to be over to Sig Sauer, and as it applies to my most immediate friends, family, ecosystem, whatever it is that we want to consider it. I'm rambling a little bit, but there's a bit of a point here, and that is that my next door neighbor recently wanted a Sig Sauer. He saw one that he absolutely loved, but the problem we ran into is that he left everything at home. The intent was not to go out and purchase any type of firearm. There were a couple of things that he wanted to look at, and I mostly wanted to show him an establishment that just recently opened up in our general area. And he saw something sitting on the shelf that immediately caught his eye, and he loved the idea of it. The problem was there was one of them. We don't know how long that stuff would stick around, and things can come and go, or they could sit, a little bit here in our local gun stores. But at the off chance that we would have to drive, there's a place that we can actually get stuff fairly readily. But the problem is they're a couple hours away. And when you factor in a round trip, it is an all-day thing. So this place is fairly close, local, and something that he really wanted was sitting on the shelf. And so I went ahead and picked it up for him. Again, to clarify, like, we're going to get into this here in just a second. I wasn't like, hey, I'm going to buy this. Here, I'm buying some other person a gun. That is absolutely not what we were doing. I purchased this firearm with the expectation that he was going to purchase it from me, but we were going to go through it via the legit channels. So I purchased this firearm. It is my firearm. We then went and sighted it in, and the very next day, when he had all of his, wallet and things to that nature on hand, we went back to said local gun store and went through the appropriate process of the private party sale and transfer. So now it is his firearm. So we went through this the legal way. Yeah. Okay. So before we get into any of that, but so what did he purchase? He purchased a Sig Sauer P226 Legion, and there are a lot of things to say about that gun. In fact, you know what? I may actually pop over there and pick it back up and talk about it a little bit. And we can get into that because it's kind of neat. It's a neat gun. They made some design decisions that both from an engineering standpoint, an aesthetic standpoint, a functional standpoint, are actually really neat. So that again is the P226 Legion. Uh, so with that in mind, great. I think that's a great gun. Again, that's a totally separate video. How does this apply to me? Well, that's just what I did yesterday. How does this apply to my day to day? It doesn't. Um, but what impact does it sort of have in the rest of the ecosystem that is me and my immediate, sort of peers? None, really. It just gives me something to talk about with a neighbor where he's got his P226 Legion. As it applies to, I mentioned Heidi. I am almost positive that Heidi is going to probably wind up with um, a P365 with a RMR setup on it. So that'll be kind of neat, and that'll be its own sort of separate thing that we'll talk about. But getting into this video, now that we're, what, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 7 minutes into talking about, oh, this was supposed to be motorcycles, and Sig Sauer, and designs, and my neighbor, and stuff, where does that apply to me? So I do have a Sig Sauer. I actually have a Sig Sauer P226, also a Legion. There are a lot of different iterations of Sig. They've got the P3 series, they got the P2 series. Legion tends to be their sort of flagship from those different platforms. And what sets aside let's say a 226 and a 226 Legion? Well, there could be many different things. And as it applies in my particular situation, let's actually get into the gun itself. We'll pop down desk surface. Go ahead, give me the desk surface. Sweet. And we will look at got some fuzz on it, dust on it from the wall. We have a 226 Legion, and yeah, so that is the gun, and it's set up with a red dot already. This red dot is actually the Romeo Zero Pro that is offered directly by Sig Sauer. There's a lot to love and hate about that. There are a couple of things to love and hate about that, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But what sets aside the Legion from a 226, the standard 226, or the Legion in the 320 from the next door neighbor versus the standard P320? A handful of things. So the coating is a little bit different. So it's my understanding that the non-Legion models are just standard nitride finishes. This has, I don't actually know what the specific finish is on this, but it's supposed to be more corrosion resistant. It is a different color. Corrosion resistant and wear resistant, I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. Literally corrosion salt. But because I don't know, I haven't had a situation where this has been exposed to elements or things of that nature where it's a problem. But it does result in a different color that is Legion specific. Further, with the Legion models, you get the little Legion chevron on this is specifically about the 226. I'll stop talking about the Neighbors 320, but on the 226, you got your little Legion chevron that's built into the grips. It's my understanding that Hogue actually makes these grips. It is their, what is it, G10 style grip, so material. So it's very solid, like checkering, if we will, that it holds on really good. It's actually fairly solid as far as what it feels like. I'm going to go ahead and turn the volume down on that because otherwise we're going to just get more notification dings. But anyway, so we've got this guy. Then there's a couple of different models of the 226 also that matter. So we've got single action only, And then we've got double action, single action. So this one is the double action, single action. We've got our hammer and our decocker here. So I believe that's available on the non-Legion model, but it is here. Um, in regards to the Legion versus the non-Legion model, we actually have this more of a deeper cut into the grip versus the trigger guard. We've got a longer beaver tail, and essentially what that allows us to do is we are able to get higher up on the gun, snugger into the gun, and hold on here. You know what we probably should do? Let's go ahead and do a excuse me, safety check of this firearm. So yeah, it's good. And then we've got again our decocker, which is handy. So you can go about your. I don't know what your circumstances for one of these would be. For me, it's a carry gun. I'd be able to go about carrying and one in the chamber and simply have it decocked. And just to show, this is empty. We're completely clear. No magazine at this point. Decock, but it allows us to fire with that significant harder trigger pull without having to worry about a softer. Here's something else that's interesting. The trigger is actually made by Gray Guns, as I guess contracted by Sig to do the triggers on the Legion guns. And here's what's crazy about this. I wonder if you're going to be able to see this on camera. So I kept this trigger pulled so you can see. We're going to go ahead and lift to do the reset. Ready? Oh, I'm sorry. Right. So now we're going to do the reset. Here we go. Right there. It is so minimal to do that reset. It's very, very, very short. I'm zoomed in quite a bit so you can see it, but super, super short on that reset. Very, very crisp. It feels really good. Double action, single action, the trigger feels really, really good. Again, contracted to Gray Guns from Sig Sauer. It's not using the traditional Sig trigger. So that is something else that is different. Next up is, I'm not sure what sights come on the base 226, but this happens to be their daytime, nighttime sight. So we've got sort of a green glow going on. I'm not going to be able to get that into the camera to show you. So we got green glow, and they are also night sights. They're tritium night sights. They are already machined for a optic, if that's something that you wanted to have set up on the gun. So that is preset to go. And then again, first party, there is the Romeo optics that are available that you can go ahead and get installed. There are some challenges with this though. So let's actually take a step back to the gun. As said, different finish. And then obviously the cuts into the trigger, the checkering that exists, the grip, the beaver tail, the trigger, the machining for the optic, and then the type of sights that are installed on it. Again, I don't know if this is going to show up on camera. It does. See that right there, that wear that's on the barrel that you can see. There's some down in there. I said they used a different type of coating that's supposed to be more durable. However, this gun has never been fired. It is literally just that wear we're seeing is just from racking the slide. So that's something to bear in mind. Then we've got, as I said, the optic. There are some concerns and challenges with that. I wonder if you can actually see. I don't think that's going to show up on camera. It does. Hey, there we go. We can see our dot. So the dot is red dot sight from Romeo. It's the Romeo Zero Pro. This particular one has, I want to say it's 8 levels of brightness. The brightness can be adjusted by pressing a button that is just behind the rear glass. It's very, very tough to get in there. In fact, I want to say in their demo videos, they show them doing it with like a little Allen wrench. It's very, very bright in daylight, so that's good. However, the body of it is made out of some type of carbon-infused polymer, and so not so great. I mean, I personally have not had an issue, but at the same time, it's never been fired, so I don't know. Like there are issues where people talk about it cracking, um, and it just not being able to, for single-handed operation, maybe a challenge. If I don't know, 99% of the situations where people talk about the wear and tear of an optic, the general person is not going to encounter that type of situation. But um, there are some opinions about that being made out of polymer and instead of aluminum or something. But in the Zero Pro, it actually has a stainless steel sort of shroud that goes over the polymer to try to prevent that. In earlier iterations of the Romeo, the sight glass that's not glass was actually also made out of some type of acrylic or polymer or something that was see-through. It is now glass, so that's there. Further, it is waterproof. We'll call it water resistant. What really is waterproof, but in that it is apparently good for, I don't know, I think it's a meter for a half an hour, something like that. Something that you'll never be in a situation you shouldn't really have the gun submerged. But if it was, apparently it runs. Another major downside to this, and I'm not really a huge fan of this, is that in order to change the battery, you actually have to pull the entire optic off because the battery is underneath the optic. That is a little bit of a negative point for me. Yeah, so that's kind of the gist of what this gun is. I can't go into a ton of detail other than to say it's very, very comfortable. I am a left-handed shooter. There is a problem in that this decocker presses into my finger, but I found that in handling the gun, I generally tend to adapt quickly to transitioning between this and, say, something else that I'm carrying, like either that's in the full size. Like here, we'll move this. We'll zoom out a little bit so that we can get a better picture here. But we've got the gun that we're talking about now, which is again the Sig Sauer P226. Something else in that size, I guess, would be maybe here. We've got an FN 57. We've got the full size 1911 is full size. Yeah, that works. And so ergonomically, it feels really good. The grips are really good. It just, for a left-hand shooter, just bear in mind that that does kind of bite in a little bit. That decocker bites in a little bit. You'll find that you just kind of lower your finger down a smidge. Right-hand shooters, it'll be a non-issue, and it feels really, really, really good. So, Sig Sauer P226 Legion, single action, double action, great gun. Don't have a ton of experience shooting it, and when I say don't have a ton of experience, I have zero experience shooting it. Did spend some time on the 320 yesterday. Great gun, single action only, but still feels really good. I imagine the experience is going to be very, very comparable. Same but different, but maybe different. I don't know. Yeah, looking forward to bringing this into my rotation for my cold season carry. It'll be my first EDC platform that is red dot, so I won't be operating off of strictly iron sights. Traditionally, what I would be doing is I'm using a LCP, what is it, the 380 for like warm weather carry, and then as we get into cold weather carry, I was using the Glock 26 because it just kind of hides on my body fairly well. And then if I was going to be away for extended periods, or I was going to be in a really dense sort of situation where I don't know, like we'll just say a longer away period from home, I would transition over to the 5.7 because we've got just a higher density capacity, and it's very lightweight. I'm not 100% sure actually, but I want to say that the 5.7 fully loaded with 20 rounds is actually lighter than the 26 fully loaded with 10 rounds. But anyway, so the 226 is actually a much heavier gun than well, it's not heavier than the 1911, but yeah. So that'll be something that'll be interesting to get used to for this new up and coming cold season. We'll see. I don't think that the what I'm carrying traditionally, I said in a denser situation, is the 5.7. I think that the 5.7 is excellent. It's not as comfortable. It is more ergo compliant, I think. Um, with our safety. But yeah, I don't know. Very, very comparable features in that we've got our rail. We don't have any type of decocking, not necessary for the 5.7. I have never, ever really been super comfortable with checking that's clear, with the 1911 in that it needs to be carried, ready to go, as they say, cocked and locked, hammer back, ready to go with safety on. So anyway, but it's heavier. It's very pretty to look at. So for dress dinner occasions or something where a sidearm in like a shoulder holster, the 1911 comes in really good. Um, the situation with the Glock 26 is it's a great, great gun. I think that if you need more than 10 rounds, there's probably a bigger problem. But uh, the 26 hides really well as well. But I think it was just sort of time for a change for a full size. Also, the 26 is still going to be part of carry, I think, in situations, where it's more suitable. I don't know what that looks like, but yeah. So 226, I've kind of covered everything without being able to go and say, yeah, no, it's phenomenal, it's great, it shoots good. Here's what I look like on paper with it, because I'm not there yet. That'll be tomorrow. We'll be able to put some time at the range and go through it and follow up maybe and talk about that. But for the moment of this recording, um, we've talked about what sort of sets it apart high level from a traditional 226. It feels very, very good. Great ergo. Little stamps of Legion here and there. We'll see what we think. I think the point that I was trying to make when I brought out the other guns is that this feels really good, ergonomic, minus that little bit of bite for left-hand shooters such as myself. We've got our 5.7, which is, I'd say, less ergonomic, but it caters really, really reasonably to me as a left-hand shooter. Um, and then if you know anything about the 5.7, is there's no recoil to these at all. Actually, so that's something about the 5.7s. They won't shoot without a magazine in it. 1911 heavy. 1911s feel phenomenal. They're great to shoot. There's so much positive to say about a 1911. The problem is in that 45, you just have lower density. Sometimes you'll see like most of them are 7.1. In this, you'll see 8.1. I'm sorry, this is 7.1. Some you'll see 8.1 or um, 9.1, and there's all kinds of different iterations and things. 1911s are highly, highly customized. The Glock is really, really good, but it's a compact or subcompact gun, and so we're talking about full size. But the ergos between my full size platforms, I have to say that I'm going to give it to that isn't a 1911. But as far as that goes, it's heavy, but not as heavy as the 1911. Um, Functionality, it's there. There's more safety to it. There's more um, sort of like peace of mind to it. There's obviously much higher density than 1911, but it feels really good. I don't think there's too many things that can beat a 1911 as far as comfort of holding, grip comfort. But yeah, this comes really, really close, so I'm excited to shoot it. Um, it's not exciting to shoot that is full size. We're gonna full size, but whatever. And I did say this is gonna be my first full size carry that has an optic on it. This doesn't count, but to wrap up this video, I think this video is long enough now. But I mean, I guess technically this is full size, and it has an optic on it, I guess. So yeah, ergonomics. I mean, it's okay. The the slide release though, that bites into my finger. Wow, I actually should get that machine down. Maybe. I wonder. No, it's okay. It's all right. Maybe. Anyway, So that's where we're at. That's what all of this looks like. Again, we're sort of diluting the point of the video, but we got our 226. I'm excited to shoot it. We'll see how it goes. All right, take care.